Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to talk about how you can support your subscribers while practicing social distancing. I'm Sarah Tomasi, the Marketing Manager at Comtrend. Here with me today is AJ Sicasio from Comtrend. We are also joined by Parental and our partner Router Limits, who will be represented by Skylar Walker. I will go ahead and hand this off to AJ to start the webinar.
Thank you very much for taking the time to attend. So obviously a lot of stuff going on in the world today, and as you're all aware, social distancing is a big topic. And what we're doing here is we've put together some tips and the ways to move forward with Comtrend product and be able to do that in a world of social distancing. You know, the good news, bad news to this situation is, you know, unlike a lot of industries like travel, restaurants, things like that. You know, ourselves and yourselves as hardware manufacturers and internet service providers, our products are probably in more demand now than they ever have been before. The reason for that is a combination of increased broadband and Wi-Fi needs at the same time when, you know, we need to be limiting our physical interactions. So that's kind of like two sides of the same coin. Like how are we going to provide, you know, the services that are in more demand today, but also do it in a safe manner? So again, we put together some steps here that you can take to be better prepared as we navigate through this COVID-19 and specifically do it with Comtrend products. So to protect both your employees and your subscribers, it's important to reduce or remove interaction while maintaining self-installs. And in addition to doing that, providing the customer satisfaction that your end users are going to expect. So we're calling this the pursuit of zero touch. We're going to start with how you can implement and maintain self-installs, and we'll cover how you can prepare for the greater demands that subscribers are placing on their current broadband and Wi-Fi networks in their homes. This is also where we'll pass the ball over to our special guest, Skylar from Router Limits, and he'll showcase some of their relevant internet management and parental control offerings. We'll then show some examples of how you can utilize an ACS to prevent in-home visits and support those products and those customers remotely. And lastly, we'll talk about the importance of maintaining inventory levels on critical equipment to service existing and the influx of new telecommuting and distance learning subscribers, in addition to those needing higher performing hardware and faster speed tiers. So that may require replacement of the hardware that they have in their home today to a product that's capable of doing the streaming, the speeds needed for streaming and web conferences and things like that. So in an effort to maintain social distances, we recommend reducing your time at the customer premise by implementing self-install. So our marketing team, our engineering team, they've been working together and so that we can assist our customers by providing customized self-install guides that can then go on to your end users and meet your company's specific needs. We've already begun customizing self-install guides on our flagship devices, so the WR6895, the NL3120, and the VR3060. We're doing that currently with multiple ISPs and you know, working on co-branding if they want the document to go out to the end users with their name on it, things like that. We're also working on additional guides of additional products that we have beyond those three flagship devices, including our new Wi-Fi 6 units that have already been released. But if you have a specific Comtrend product that you guys count on today for your network, and it's not one of these flagship devices, so maybe it's an AR5319 or something like that, you can definitely let us know. Let your engineer know, let your Comtrend salesperson know, and we'll look to bump up the priority on that unit that is, you know, self-install guides are being created by our team. So we'll see what we can do to move that one up and get that one released as soon as possible for you. Here you can see some examples of the self-install guide. So if you're utilizing TR69, if you do your deployments via DHCP, if you use a custom firmware, then you can use our customizable self-install guides to help subscribers install that gateway when it arrives at their house. So instead of sending a tech, you know, in a van into the customer's home to set up that product. You can mail the unit to them, or you can have that tech in the van drop it off on their doorstep with this documentation in the box, and the customer can, work through this and call your CSRs to get that unit up and running without your tech actually having to enter the home. As for PPPoE, we understand that that's a little bit more challenging, and some of the providers might be doing their deployments via PPPoE. That does require unique settings for each customer. That being said, it is possible to still do a self-install. However, it may require a change to your normal SOP in order to achieve that self-install. So to discuss how it could be done, what changes might need to be done with the way that you're sending out the units or provisioning them before they go to a customer, just talk to your Comtrend engineer about how you do it today. They'll be happy to talk to you about what little tweaks would need to be done in order to do it as a self-install, and then you can kind of make that decision there if it makes sense or not. Okay, so obviously preparing for greater demands on the home network, social distancing has moved work, schooling, entertainment viewing, social communication, all of that back into the home. So this means greater demands are being put on residential broadband and Wi-Fi networks. We have telcos reporting to us that internet spikes are unprecedented as everyone's at home using internet for the work, school, and entertainment at the same time. And we've seen that in just the amount of hardware shipments. It's been a little bit crazy, the demand on the product, and again, some of these higher performing gateways to very quickly get customer bases covered. Comcast this week said their linear video consumption's increased from 4 hours to 64 hours per week, and that video on demand is nearing record highs, up 25% year over year. So, as a service provider, you're going to need tools to assist both customers that have Wi-Fi dead zones, as well as customers that are demanding, internet management, parental controls for their kids at home, or even their telecommuting employees. If a business has sent all their employees home with their work computers, they're going to want to make sure that those employees are using those devices to do the work that they expect from them. Comtrend has a number of Powerline and Wi-Fi solutions that are purpose-built to reach faraway locations within a customer's house. So for these subscribers that are now working at home, and the children as well that need a connectivity in different parts of the house, G.hn Powerline's a good and reliable solution to solve those Wi-Fi dead zones. Our Powerline adapters include Wi-Fi Extend 2.0 technology, which if you're using a Comtrend gateway, what that does is the second these G.hn units are put in that installation, meaning an Ethernet cable goes from one of these G.hn units into the gateway, which is then plugged into an outlet, and throughout the installation, a number of wireless ones are put so that the dead spots are taken care of. The SSID and password that is on that gateway instantly propagates to those devices at the other parts of the house or other parts of the installation. So again, this is towards that self-install. Your tech not only doesn't have to set up the gateway now, your tech also doesn't need to set up all these remote Wi-Fi hotspots within a home to make sure that they're all on the same SSID. They all use the same password, and so that an end customer's client device like phone is capable of jumping from device to device just seamlessly. Why Powerline is such a great solution for extending Wi-Fi and broadband throughout a house and through too hard to reach locations. It really all has to do with solving wireless issues the best way possible. The best way to do that is via a hardwire extension of that broadband to a wireless device exactly where you need it. You look at this slide here, you can see the dB reduction based on different types of building material. And in all of our different areas as service providers, construction is done with different types of material. Here in California, it's a lot of wood because of earthquakes, but you look at areas of the country that have a lot of hurricanes, a lot is done with concrete or there is brick. That's the worst type of material to try to pass a wireless signal through. So again, you're eliminating the situation where one of these building materials is sapping up all of your wireless signal. This next slide really shows that. The top is solving a wireless issue with wireless, so doing it with wireless repeaters. Well, the gateway here, the wireless signal has to travel through one wall, a certain distance, through another wall to a wireless repeater and to that end client device, which in this case is a phone. So huge reduction there caused in the middle, going between those two walls and that distance. The bottom part of this slide is showing moving the broadband over the power line and then putting a wireless device exactly where you need it. So, that might be an office, that might be a basement, which is through a concrete floor, a concrete slab. That Wi-Fi, even with extenders, is not going to do a good job penetrating that concrete. But by using the existing infrastructure already built in the house, you're able to hardwire right to where you need it. This is our G.hn Wave 1 device, the 9172AC. So this would be the wireless endpoint. In addition to being dual band, also has a really powerful wireless radio, 550 milliwatt. The benefit to this device, why a lot of service providers like it, is that this form factor doesn't restrict it to being right on an outlet, right? And a lot of times, the outlet in a room could be behind a piece of furniture. And before we were talking about obstruction. So if it's behind a piece of furniture, you've already got one obstruction there that you're dealing with. This device has a cord which plugs into the outlet, and this device can be put up on top of that piece of furniture. So that is our 9172AC. This one here is our Wave 2 device, 9182AC. So Wave 2 does have better hardwire speeds, and it has the dual band Wi-Fi built in. Plugs right into an outlet, does not block the outlet above it, and it is a dual band like I mentioned. And now I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Skylar to talk a little bit about the Router Limits product that is built native onto the Comtrend gateways.
Thanks, AJ. All right, well, I appreciate everybody having me here today. My name is Skylar, and I'm with Router Limits and with Bark. Actually, the ink is still wet on an acquisition deal that Router Limits was recently acquired by a company called Bark Technologies, which we're really excited about, and I will highlight a little bit for you as we go. And we even have a special offer here at the end during these unprecedented times. So Router Limits has partnered with Comtrend, and we have built in our software into the Comtrend gateways. This is included in the firmware. It's not something that's going to overwrite the firmware or create any other kind of strange edge case for you. We've directly partnered with Comtrend. Our engineers have collaborated and built this into the firmware. So if you have a newer unit from the factory, it may already have it embedded. If not, it's simply a firmware update from the latest Comtrend firmware to add this. And what Router Limits gives is really powerful controls to your subscriber. They're able to do things like see bandwidth usage and run speed tests, parental controls, see what devices are online, pause them, set up bedtimes, filter content, all of those kinds of things. And I'll highlight those a little bit for you here as we go through. The beauty of it is it's app-based. There is a web app and there is a mobile app. It's a cloud hybrid solution, so your users aren't having to deal with any kind of special situation where they've got to connect to the router or remember an IP address. They can do it from within their home or while they're away as well. So to kind of highlight some of these features, first the parental controls. This is one of our most powerful features and is highly demanded by parents, including right now. This has actually been, much like service providers, this has been an uptick for us in usage, where there's kids home from school and families are on devices more than ever. So with our parental controls, you can take control of any device individually on the network. You can set up filtering. You can pause the internet, which is a really popular feature where you hit a big pause button and that device is shut off. You can set up bedtimes. You can have different schedules. Say you want to have a homework time where they can only access school websites. Anything like that, it's completely customizable. You can also track browsing activity, so you can see what sites have been accessed by which device. And one of the things that makes this really, really powerful is our ability to go mobile. If you look at parental controls on a traditional gateway device, or a Wi-Fi router or something, let's say you set up a bedtime for certain devices and you shut those off at a certain time. Most families nowadays have a family plan, or the kids have data access, or they know the Wi-Fi name and password of the neighbor's house. So they'll just quickly bypass anything that you have specifically on the gateway. That's where our mobile apps come into play, where you can actually install apps on iOS and Android that run in the background of those devices and will enforce all of the same access control policies and monitoring, no matter where those devices are, whether they connect to LTE, they're off at school, whatever. So really great feature there, and a strong differentiator. Now with Bark and our acquisition there, Bark has built an incredible artificial intelligence engine that will actually help you monitor all of these things, and it makes it a little bit more hands-off. Router Limits has really excelled at building the control aspects, but there's still a little bit of a manual process for a parent to check the logs, look at the history, see, what are these, what are they accessing? Is there anything I should be concerned about? And Bark has an AI that will actually monitor all of the activity and flag suspicious activity for parents. And that's one of the things that we're really excited about, bringing these two things together, is really creating a comprehensive solution. And Bark's been around for a little while. They're very they have a good market share of schools in the U.S. Using the product. I think we've got about 5.5 million kids protected at this point, and a good track record of preventing things like school shootings, and using this data and flagging it for parents and school administrators when it's a school device of things that should be of concern. So pretty excited about that. Bandwidth monitoring. This is something that was born out of listening to our clients and our partners. One of the most common phone calls to support is, hey, my internet's slow. And when you look to see what the bandwidth being delivered to the home is, it's exactly what they're paying for. But that's always a really terrible user experience, because when you tell them, well, it's something on your side, that doesn't really ever go over very well. They don't know how to identify which device that is or what to do about it. So we actually provide a real-time graph. You can see the actual traffic that's going on the network. Jumping back, that was on this page. You can see kind of a real-time graph scrolling across, as well as an aggregate that shows it by device. So I can see in the last 5 minutes or hour which devices are the biggest culprits. And then tying that into the parental control, I can then go and pause that device and shut the internet off to it. So what's great about this is it adds a little bit of self-care, self-serve to the subscribers before they call you and complain that their internet's slow. Hopefully they can self-diagnose that and just tell, oh, this device, little Timmy is streaming 4K, running his BitTorrent server, and playing Xbox in the basement. That's what's happening with my internet right now. And hopefully they can figure that out on their own. Another feature I wanted to highlight, speed testing. Once again, related to actual feedback. A lot of people know how to run a speed test from speedtest.net or something equivalent. But usually the issue is when they run that, they're running it from, say, their mobile device. It's on the opposite side of the house from the router. So they're not only testing the internet connection, they're also testing that Wi-Fi. And there's always some amount of variance in Wi-Fi. We don't know how far away they are, how many walls it's going through. So what this does is it will actually run a speed test directly from the gateway. So when this is initiated, this will be run from the Comtrend router back to the cloud. So you're getting an actual hardline readout here. And this can be run periodically. It can graph results over time. It's pretty cool, all of the features that you can tweak with that. Now, I want to point out that there are two ways to get router limits. One, you get it built into a gateway. Inevitably, most people have customers that either don't have a provider leased or sold CPE gateway. Either the customer wants to keep their own, or there's something else, and maybe an older model or something. So we always have also a plug-in appliance that you can just plug into the back of any router and add the functionality. And this is great too when you're trying to service even people outside of your subscriber base. If you're, as part of your sales and marketing, if you're finding customers that may want to just purchase these controls from you, it adds a different type of subscriber, and that maybe later you'll be able to sell them internet service. Okay, so a couple really quick whys. Router limits. First of all, we're looking to help you increase your ARPU. Obviously, by providing subscribers with additional value adds is going to be the easiest way to increase revenue. It's generally a lot more cost effective and cheaper than the cost of acquisition for new customers. And good news for Parental Controls, recent research has shown that 84% of families either currently use or want to use Parental Controls. And that number is just incredible when you think about it. The amount of devices that are proliferating in the home and kids on screen time has become a real common issue. And a lot of parents struggle with this, and they're looking for answers. And if you're not providing that to them, they're looking for them elsewhere and taking their dollars to somebody else. When you think about high touch, high value services like this, where it applies to such a large percentage, I think of television and voice. It's been done. And what's next? I really think it's adding these controls and giving subscribers more insight and control over their network and their devices. We're also trying to help boost retention. It's pretty sad when you look at the studies out there for our industry. People just don't like service providers, particularly internet service providers, and that's not fair, frankly. I know how hard you guys work to keep your networks up and build out infrastructure and all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And unfortunately, subscribers, they just don't give you much credit for it, because all they deal with is, when, oh, my bill's wrong or my service is out. That's the only time they're remembering their service provider, which is unfortunate. So the goal is, well, let's create some value add services that they remember who their service provider is, and that they're high touch and they're interacting with you more frequently. And once again, these type of features come squarely in line with that. Customers, when somebody asks them, hey, who's your internet service provider, instead of saying Google, hopefully they're going to drop your name, and they're going to say, oh, and look, I've got this tool, this feature. Look how cool it is, right? But yeah, I mean, let's take these numbers. To me, are just completely shocking. But a lot of people are just literally dropping a line. That's what their customer gets, and so it's pretty easy for the customer to forget. I always like to liken this to security systems. It's amazing when you look at the security industry and alarms. People will pay, $60-70 a month to have their house monitored, their alarm monitored every month. And when you think about that, the customer is more than happy to pay that because they can feel the value. I call this a high touch service. So whenever I leave my house and I arm my alarm, or I go to bed, I'm arming it. Statistically, nobody's ever going to break into my house. It's just not going to happen. But yet I'll still pay the $60, $70 a month to feel that protection and to feel safe. So people are looking for those type of value adds, and those are the ones they're willing to pay for, where they can actually feel it. So being able to jump on, set a bedtime for my kids. Kids are acting up. I can pause the internet and they're digitally grounded. Getting them to dinner, getting them to do their homework. All of these recurring issues that they have, if we can help them solve them, then this becomes a high-touch service. And by the way, one other point I would want to make on the boosting retention is it's also harder to give up. So when they get a mailer from your competitor offering them $10 less a month, they're less willing to jump because they're going to lose these high touch features. And then finally, cutting support costs. So as we talked about, providing some of these features that answer the common questions. My internet is slow. Well, what is it about it? Is it something hogging up the bandwidth on your network? What's going on, and helping them drive to that a little bit more than just throwing that back on you. We do have backend tools available. We call it a Pro Portal. We also have APIs, so this can be integrated into all of your existing systems, as well as if you just want to swivel chair and use a GUI we have provided. You can see all of your customers, provide them support, see their settings, see their devices. We've tried to make that really easy. So on a final note, I mentioned a special offer. We've been thinking about how we could help families during this time. So we came up with this offer. This is the Bark product. So being acquired by Bark, we're still dealing with two different products, which we are merging together as quickly as we can, but it's quite a daunting task to bring two companies and products together. And as I mentioned, the ink on the deal is still wet, so this is still a fresh thing, and we're working towards it. But what we're able to do, and we're able to launch very, very quickly, was this special offer of 3 free months of Bark. And Bark is a 100% software solution today until router limits is combined in. So this is something that's really easy to just send out to your customers. You don't have to, no truck roll, nothing big to undertake here. You can literally launch this to your customers overnight. We're providing templates of emails and marketing materials that you can just mail out. They click a link, they sign up, they get three free months from you. That's what we want you to angle this as something that you're thinking about your customers during this time, and want to give them something to help. 3 months was kind of born to get them through the end of the school year. And don't worry about any additional burden on your marketing, on your technical support, sales. I mean, we'll handle all that. This is kind of an affiliate setup here. And then if they decide to stay on after the gimmick free, no gotcha, 3 month free period, they can just remain subscribed, and we will share back some of that recurring revenue back to you if you're interested. So if that's something that you're interested in, please go to bark.us/affiliates. So with that, I'll throw that back over to you, AJ.
All right, so the next thing that we wanted to talk about, a way to make it easier for you to support your customers remotely, is via ACS. So an ACS, an auto configuration server, has tools to reduce in-home visits. You can set up, you can manage, you can troubleshoot and control CPE remotely, customer premise equipment remotely. So whether you use a Comtrend ACS, a FinePoint ACS, or another standards-based ACS, regardless of who it's from, all Comtrend telco-grade gateways use standard-based TR69 and will work with any standards-based ACS, which is, most of them, really anyone that you would consider or should use should be a standards-based. If you don't have an ACS today and aren't necessarily ready to commit to a full solution because you're still doing your diligence there, one thing to consider is this. Comtrend has a free ACS option. that can be used on all Comtrend hardware. And it's Comtrend hardware, so it's not a free ACS on other devices. But I'd highly recommend at least starting with this so that every unit you deploy is remotely manageable, starting from today. Let's say you signed up with it today. There's no cost to it. It is a free. It is, it's not a full featured, but as far as being able to remotely touch those units, it does do that. So, to that extent, you never need another ACS. Your distribution partner, like Power and Telephone, would configure the units before shipping them to you with the IP address of the ACS. And what that allows for is in the future, when you've finally done your diligence and you did decide we do want a full-featured ACS, and you've finally picked, whatever vendor that would be. Maybe that's, again, the Comtrend 3.0 ACS, which is a very strong one, or the FinePoint ACS, or another vendor. At that point, you can just redirect where those units that you've been deploying for the last 6 months or year or whatever it is, the IP address of the ACS that they're pointing to, which is the Comtrend free one, you could redirect that to whatever ACS you choose. So again, now you've deployed 6 months or a year's worth of product that are manageable and were manageable during that whole time and are now manageable by your new ACS that you've chosen. Okay, so this here is the Comtrend ACS 3.0. This isn't the free version. This is our pay-for-license version, but it's a very strong ACS. We've had it for years, and this is the newest version of it. As you could see, it has a customer service dashboard. On the gateway to node, it'll identify both Wi-Fi and G.hn units, as well as show what clients are attached to which. As far as the FinePoint ACS, this is a partner of ours. They have an ACS that is very user-friendly from a GUI standpoint. It also does a few other things that the Comtrend ACS doesn't do. And that's, using like historical data to identify subscriber trends and patterns. What this can do is this can help you to plan future construction. So, if the neighborhood on the east side of town has much higher bandwidth demands than the neighborhood on the west side of town, and I know that I'm going to do a big fiber construction rollout this year, now I can decide, okay, let me go ahead and do it on that east side as opposed to the west side. Other than that, you can drill down on a residential network, see what issues customers are having, or devices customers are having issues with. You can see when those issues started. So you could potentially ask your customer, well, I see as of Tuesday last week, a new device was added to the network. And that's when you started complaining about your bandwidth speed. What was that device? Oh, well, my kid got an Xbox. Okay, well, that's what's causing the big demand on your home network. And this is where you can do that third point. I would suggest moving up to another speed tier. So you can do those. It'll help your customer service rep to make those calls on the phone with the customer to kind of do that analysis and make that determination then. But you can also use it to kind of research your end customers and figure out who's a primary target or a perfect target to pitch an upgrade speed to based upon their usage. The last part here is talking about inventory, and we make our suggestion here to have 90 days worth of inventory of those critical components that help get your customers signed up and using your services immediately. The past 2 years, even before we talk about the COVID situation, the past 2 years have been a little bit crazy. And you probably felt this with all the hardware you use, from component shortages like MLCCs to government-imposed tariffs that have trickled all the way down to the consumer level as far as costs. And we've seen that in almost every product that we buy, just as consumers. To now situations with inconsistent manufacturing. We've seen canceled or delayed sailings by freight companies. So where a ship was going to sail, I heard one of the biggest, I think it was Maersk, canceled 60 sailings. So that becomes a situation where every vendor is now, that was scheduled to be on a certain boat, is now working with either Maersk or other freight companies to get their product on another boat. So there is a lot of instability right now in the market. So it's very, very important to get your hands on to secure that product that you're going to need to keep your business going. The good news is from a Comtrend perspective, and with our partners like Power and Telephone, we've taken steps to mitigate those shortages by moving up our production and bringing in stock as fast as we could. On the flip side of that, though, we're also seeing an influx of increased hardware orders because of everything we've talked about before. More distance learning, more telecommuting, higher bandwidth needs. General tips and ideas. This is on the right here is Keep Americans Connected from the FCC. This is kind of the pledge that they put out there. From your perspective as a service provider, scheduling mass upgrades, using an ACS to do that, to reduce support calls. Some of you are offering free reduced internet packages and upgrades, but again, making sure you have the hardware to do that. Before a technician is dispatched to a customer's location, we've had a few service providers tell us that maybe an hour or two before they send a tech, they call that customer. And this is still in the scenario where the tech is going into the home. They call that customer just to make sure that no one is sick, that no one is running a temperature, because if so, they don't want to send their tech into that situation. And then again, what we see as the best way to do this is a workaround of by sending a unit by mail, by putting a unit on the doorstep, and by having everything dialed in so that it is a self-install all the way from the customer picking that box up from their doorstep to plugging it in to calling your customer service reps and getting that unit up and running. And from here, I believe I'm turning it back over to Sarah.
And perfect. We want to thank you all once more for joining our webinar, and we hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.